right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you'll be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom, but this is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team, then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then those who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thank you, Crystal. Good evening, everyone. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances and appeals, and recommendations to city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify this evening. In order to file an appeal, you must have given either written or oral testimony tonight, and please use your name and address when testifying. We utilize the consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report, and if there is no public opposition, the item is placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, and neighborhood association presentations, and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Here.
Danley. Gillespie.
I'm here.
Moore.
Here.
Mooney.
Here.
Seha.
Here.
Torres.
Here.
Doan. 6 present, 2 absent.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we have a relatively short agenda tonight. Up first, item A is PUD 22-8 G. Scott McCormick at 8233 West Limelight Street and 8306 West State Street. This is just a straight time extension. So is the applicant present? Hi there. I just wanted to make sure that you were in agreement with the staff report. Okay, very good. Records show that the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. Staff, do we need a motion on this item or it's just an item of note? Motion. Okay. So I'll go ahead and entertain a motion regarding time extension on item A.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we place item A, PUD 22-8, time extension with the added condition to comply with all conditions of the Boise Valley Irrigation Ditch Company on the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Great. Thank you. A motion for to approve item A, PUD 22-8, the time extension. Motion was by Commissioner Moore with a second by Commissioner Torres. Any further discussion? Very good. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer.
Yes.
Gillespie.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Mooney.
Yes.
Seha.
Yes.
Torres.
Yes.
All in favor. Motion carries.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And then item number 1 is CFH 23-104 Centurion Engineers. Also along with this application is PUD 23-32 and SUB 23-41. So this is a Category 3 hillside development permit, a conditional use permit for residential planned development, and then also a preliminary and a final plat for a mixed-use subdivision. The applicant is requesting, I believe it's the applicant requesting deferral of this item to June 3rd. Is the applicant present? Doesn't look like it, so we'll go ahead and assume that they're okay with the deferral. Anyone in attendance hoping to testify in opposition to this item? And no takers there. We'll go ahead and entertain a motion then for these three items.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore.
I move that we defer item number one, CFH 23-104, PUD 23-32, and SUB 23-41 to June 3rd hearing.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Moore, and who made the motion, and Commissioner Torres, who was the second. Any other discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All right, very good. That moves us right along to our last items tonight. Item number 2, CAR 23-23, CUP 23-80, and SUB 23-58. Clark Wardle is the applicant. The project address is 3635 West Elder Street. This is a modification to an existing development agreement, along with a conditional use permit for 2 hotels and a height exception on 8.83 acres. And then also a preliminary plat for a commercial subdivision comprised of 3 buildable lots on said 8.83 acres. We're going to start with staff first. Mr. David Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. First, I'd like to note these applications are based on the legacy code and not the modern zoning code, and also try to keep my presentation short and cover the general highlights of the project and the planning team's recommendation. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for 2 hotels and a height exception on 8.8 acres located at 3635 West Elder Street in LOD DA zone. A modification to the development agreement to change the site restrictions to accommodate the 2 hotels and a preliminary plat 3 buildable lots has also been included. As seen here, the area is primarily comprised of detached single-family homes adjacent to the north and west, with office and hotels adjacent to the east along Elder Street. Across Interstate I-84 to the south is the Boise Airport. In addition, the Oahe Park abuts the property at the northeast corner. The subject property is also located in the Airport Influence Overlay Zone, which limits the density of residential developments and also requires soundproofing in buildings. In 2000, the subject property was rezoned to LODDA to accommodate an original proposed office development. However, the office development was never constructed, and the property has remained vacant since for about 24 years. Specifically, the development agreement placed restrictions on building height, building size, and access on the buildings based on the building's location on the site. The proposed modification removes these design standards and adjusts the development agreement so it references the proposed hotel project and not the original project. These modifications are listed here on this slide and are also within the project report. In particular, the development agreement limited the building size and height at different locations on site. This includes limiting the building height to 1 and 2 stories on the north side of the property and limiting the building to 3 stories on the south side of the property adjacent to the freeway. The DA also prohibited connection of Elder to St. Andrews Drive. Removing these restrictions is the main and primary goal of the DA modification. In addition to the DA modification, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for 2 hotels and a height exception. The proposed project includes connecting the public street through the site with a 3-story, 45-foot high hotel building on the north parcel and a 4-story, approximately 57-foot high hotel building on the south parcel adjacent to the freeway. This is the max height of the building at the tower element. The height of the LO zone is 45 feet, and therefore the height exception is requested. Also, the applicant is requesting a subdivision to locate each hotel building on its own parcel as seen here. There's a 3rd buildable lot that is also requested along the south side of Elder Street, and there is no proposed development for this parcel at this time. And as such, this parcel will remain landscaped open space for now. Finally, I would note, and this is kind of a last second addition, that the planning team recommends a change to condition of approval number 18 by removing the reference to CUP 23-0080 from the subdivision plat notes. Normally, we include plat notes or referencing PUDs on those because they have reduced lot size and reduced setbacks, but not so much on the CUP. So I need that one, I request that that be removed. Each hotel building will have its own site plan and building elevations, which will be shown on the following slides. And this is the site plan for the North Hotel building, which is 3 stories and 45 feet in height. It is also set back about 105 feet from the residential neighborhood to the north, with a large landscape buffer along that property line. This setback and landscape buffer will screen the hotel from the adjacent residential properties. The site design will also locate or place the building along Elder Street, with the parking lots located behind and to the sides of the hotel, as seen here. This is the site plan for the South Hotel building, which is located closer to the south property line in order to provide a better sound buffer between the freeway and airport and then the existing residential neighborhood. It's a 4-story hotel building set back about 38 feet from the adjacent residential properties, which includes a landscape buffer and parking lot as seen here. The landscape within the buffer and parking lot area will contain a mix of class 1, 2, and 3 trees. In addition to the setback and landscape buffering, this building will be 52 feet in height to the top of the parapet wall at this closest point to the residential neighborhood. The building will also be 44 feet to the top of to the height of the top floor plate, which is the occupied portion of the building. Landscaping and the step down of the building height from the tower element will help alleviate the project's impact on the adjacent neighborhood. And in summary, the overall projects comply with the setbacks and parking requirements as per code. The planning team received letters expressing concerns with the project from the public and the Hillcrest Neighborhood Association. The primary concerns expressed by the public involve connecting Elder Street to St. Andrews Drive through the subject property. The main concern with this is that the public believes that this will greatly increase the amount of traffic through the neighborhood. The planning team will contend that a majority of the hotel traffic will continue to use Elder Street to access Vista Avenue, which is the primary arterial roadway that connects the airport to the downtown area or downtown core. Also, St. Andrew Drive and Elder Street were stubbed on both sides with stub streets, with the intent that they should be connected when the subject property develops. Also, connecting public streets is encouraged by the comprehensive plan within its policies and goals. Finally, the project design restricts the total height of the North Hotel building to 45 feet and the occupied portion of the South building adjacent to the residential neighborhood to 44 feet. This will mitigate the privacy concerns expressed by the adjacent neighbors. In conclusion, it is recommended that the commission recommend approval of the DA modification and subdivision to City Council and approve the CUP for the hotels and the height exception. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. Hi, Nicolette. 10 minutes to it. Okay. I'm not sure it's on. It might not be on. There
We
you
good
go.
now?
Green light. There you go.
Thank you, guy in the back. Chair Commissioners Nicolette Womack with Kimley Horn. Address is 1100 West Idaho Street, Suite 210, Boise, Idaho 83702. We're excited to bring you this project tonight. There are several members of the applicant team, notably Joshua Leonard from Clark Wardle and Preston Rutter here tonight. We also have team members here and online. So Keyshawn and Sami are representatives of the South Hotel. Preston, Kevin, and Josh are representatives of the North Hotel. So again, before you tonight is that a development agreement to update the DA language to allow the hotels, conditional use permits permit 2 hotels and a height exception for the South Hotel, and then a preliminary plat to subdivide into 3 buildable lots. A lot has happened to get here tonight. I was not part of the earlier meetings, but wanted to recap them with you. So in 2022, this project had a pre-application meeting and an initial neighborhood meeting. Back in August of 2023, there was another pre-application meeting. And in September, there was a neighborhood meeting. The application was submitted in November, and then we're here today for PZC. So again, you know where we are. We are steps away from the Boise Airport, as one could say. This is a great site. It's a vacant site. It's been vacant for some time, so it is extremely ripe for development. Move forward. I just want to point out one thing. To the northeast is Oahe Park. Future land use is office. Makes a lot of sense here. Zoning is LODDA. Again, this was originally developed or master planned with some of the parcels to the east. And then again, the airport influence area. So A is that purplish color. It's meant for residential with schools that have sound level reduction. B1 is residential with sound level reduction and some density limits. Back in earlier applications, Boise Airport specifically commented they do not believe residential is compatible on this site. So you have hotels now. So site plan. The North Hotel is shown here in orange. That's the piece north of the extension of Elder to St. Andrews Drive. That vacant piece is shown in purple. The blue piece is the South Hotel. And you can see that we meet and exceed the parking requirements on both of the hotel sites. Super quickly, the North Hotel site, it does have access to Oahe Park. To the east, there are those two double arrows going eastward with gates. We are working with Parks and Recreation to dedicate 2 to 4 parking spaces to help serve the park as well for the public. And then we've also added a hotel pet park onto the site based on some neighborhood feedback given earlier in the process. So again, North Hotel elevation, we'll talk through the changes, but this hotel specifically did decrease its height after neighborhood feedback. We're at 45 feet at the highest point. The bulk of our hotel rooms are about 34 feet tall. And then the North Hotel elevations are shown here. This one doesn't have a commercial tenant picked yet, so it's very conceptual in nature. And shown here are some cross sections that we've prepared to help explain some of the distances between the neighbors. So you can see our North Hotel is in there conceptually. We're roughly 150 feet from the nearest residential home. You can see the mixture of trees that we're proposing to layer the hotel even further in. Again, South Hotel. This is the subject of the height exception, so we've just kind of cleaned up our elevations here so it's simple as possible. The bulk of our height, again, is at 44 feet tall. We have an elevator shaft and a few other utilities that are bumping it up to 57.9 inches on the far right. And then again, showing some site distances. So this building is about 83 feet from the nearest home. And we have a layering of trees as well, providing substantial buffer. It's also important to note that this hotel is inherently a sound buffer for the neighborhood as well. There's obviously significant traffic noise that comes from Interstate 84. So just by being here, this will also kind of act as a sound wall buffer because the actual sound wall does end partially through our site. So here's just some general distances you can see. So again, North Hotel, somewhere between 120 to 155 feet from the neighbors. On the South Hotel, somewhere between 80 and 120 feet from the neighbors. I'll just say while we're on here, we're happy to work with staff on connecting the road. It's not necessarily our client's goals, but I'm happy to work on making that happen. Again, preliminary plat dividing the lots. And along the way, there's been significant revisions. You'll see that in your packet with all the different plans that have been submitted. So we have increased landscape buffers along residential and I-84. We've combined proposed parcels as directed. We've limited lighting and signage lighting. We've added fenced off areas for hotel room pets. We've reduced the height of the South Hotel, and we've removed 1 story from the North Hotel. We received the staff report. We agree with all the conditions of the staff report, including those that Dave noted tonight. We appreciate working with staff along the way. And we request your approval of the conditional use permit application and your recommendation of approval of the DA modification and preliminary plat. We'll stand for any questions.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Nicolette. First, we're going to check in with the neighborhood association before we go to questions.
Good evening. I'm Ashley Malloy. I'm with the Hillcrest Neighborhood Association. I'm at 4103 West Pasadena, 83705. The Hillcrest Neighborhood Association has previously supplied comments to the city of Boise and the developer, and we appreciate the city and the developer have taken some of the comments into consideration, including lowering the height, the vegetative buffer, the dog park for their visitors. However, we are requesting the denial of the modification to the development agreement that would provide connection between Elder and St. Andrews and would allow traffic into our residential neighborhood. The current DA connects the 2 street, but only allows for emergency vehicles and pedestrian and bicycle access. Does not allow for just general travel. Between the proximity to the freeway and the airport's noise and fumes, St. Andrews is one of the most challenged streets in our entire neighborhood with regard to quality of life and home stability. We found that the traffic impact study prepared by NV5 is inadequate as detailed in our letter. And we believe that we would see a huge increase in cut-through traffic through the neighborhood. This proposed connection would make the situation exponentially more strenuous for our neighbors living along St. Andrew and possibly our neighbors living along Roosevelt as well. It would increase traffic on Roosevelt, which already needs extensive traffic calming implemented, and would funnel people to a dangerous intersection at the New York Canal, Hillcrest Drive, Roosevelt Street, and Targhee, which we have in the past tried to work with HCHD to improve, but it is what it is now. We do support a connection, as I said, for pedestrian and bicycles. We do want that connectivity to Vista from our neighborhood, especially with the Valley Regional Transit cutting the bus stops in our neighborhood. We do need some better access in that regard. But we do not support a connection that would allow vehicle access 24/7 through the neighborhood. And just a little history about the neighborhood. The neighborhood was developed by the Day family and the Country Club Manor subdivision. It was originally planned to go to the whole way to the airport. So even though that we have Elder and St. Andrews connection, that wasn't originally the plan when the plat was subdivided in the 1950s. So why it makes sense today, historically was never meant to connect. So we're requesting that historic connection stay the way it is, and that you all do not allow the modification for the development agreement for the connection to St. Andrews and Elder Street. We're fine with the project overall with the staff's recommendations and approval minus this connection. So thank you for your time.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring this item back to us for questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gillespie, please.
David, could you talk about that grade change between the 2 buildings and the residential uses to the north of both of them? Like how high, how much above grade relative to the homes is the base of these hotels?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the site is actually relatively flat. There's not a lot of grade change there.
Okay. So it's not like the residential units are here and the hotel starts up here, so, okay.
Yeah, it's fairly flat across.
So the heights you see are the heights we're gonna get,
That is
more or
correct.
less. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Mooney. Mhm.
question for the neighborhood association regarding the cut-through traffic. The traffic, the TIS defined, looks like 5% exiting the hotel going west. Are you implying there's going to be traffic, extra traffic coming in from the east out of the neighborhood, cutting through down on Elder?
Yeah, so we're suspecting that people are going to be either coming up Roosevelt and going over to Vista or coming down Vista. We already have a lot of cut through traffic in our neighborhood that funnels down Pasadena, which is the street to the north of St. Andrews, because the elementary school is there, and with that also being converted potentially to pre-K facility for over 300 students, we're going to suspect that we're going to have a lot more traffic in our neighborhood. And if there's an easy way to sort of access, it's going to be through that street right there.
Thank you. Follow-up.
Yep. Please, John.
For staff, David, do you have a circulation, the map back from your presentation to talk about that issue and where would this cut through traffic be originating from?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As for cut through traffic, I suspect, if you're, I'm trying to figure out, from the neighborhood's perspective, it looks like there's a lot of traffic going down Pasadena or Carolina because the public schools there. So that draws a lot of traffic in and of itself. I guess from other perspective, the only other cut through traffic I could see would be the office and hotel uses further to the east along Elder Street. But I always thought that if you're going to do that, you'd head to the main arterial, which is a straight shot back into town or to the freeway, instead of winding through the neighborhood to get where you're going. And from a SAS perspective, if you're new in town and actually at the hotel, usually you probably want to stay on the main roads instead of trying to wind through a residential neighborhood that you may not be familiar with if you're staying at the hotel. That's kind of where our thought pattern is. I realize that some traffic will go that direction, but I don't anticipate it be a significant amount.
Mr.
Thanks.
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
you can,
excuse
John.
me.
Okay. Mel, please.
So David, generally speaking, cut through traffic to you, does that mean people say going from the airport to someplace not on this map? Like if they're going to the school or the park, that's not really cut through. So how do you think about the definition of cut through?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, from the staff's perspective, looking at cut through, I would think it's probably the employees and folks who are working on the east on Elder Street in those offices and hotels. And then how are they going to get home? And would extending, if in this point cut through might be, would this provide another opportunity for them to get to Roosevelt if that's an easier direction for them to get to, if that's where they're heading? But more often than not, I'm thinking usually if you're going someplace larger in the city, you'd head to the main arterial. It has better connection to the downtown or to the freeway to get you where you're going. You'd only be heading that direction as if you somehow needed to get over there in the first place and you wanted to get to Roosevelt or something down Roosevelt.
Right.
I mean, that's from my perspective,
Right.
trying to anticipate
Thank you.
people's traffic patterns.
John?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please.
Question for staff. David, kind of a follow-up on this TIS, the Elder and Vista intersection. Some of the neighborhood comments are pretty stringent about the number of average daily traffic counts that are going to increase that intersection. They cite a bunch of other recent applications that are fueling that intersection. Could you talk to us about what the city's perspective is on that intersection and how it relates to this application?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that's the Elder and Vista intersection is a ways down from this. So I didn't look at it too much. I honestly do not know if the highway district looked at it or if it's on their CIP plan to improve. I don't really have much more to say to that, unfortunately. I didn't view it specifically since it was fairly off-site from this. If the applicant is willing to comment on that via their TIS, maybe they could answer it better.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
It was
sure.
intersection number 3 in the TIS, as I recall.
Chair, Commissioners, Nicolette Womack with Kimley Horn. So the TIS was accepted by ACHD, which means it was reviewed thoroughly, which means it was done by a traffic engineer that follows, the typical standards required across the city for all traffic engineering analyses. So with regards to that one intersection, I noted in the staff report, they didn't anticipate any CIP projects, but they did say that everything was standard in the traffic analysis report. And part of that process too is to analyze adjacent developments. I'm not sure the exact threshold off the top of my brain, if it's ones that are literally built or just ones that have gone through the pipeline around the same time. So that should be all encompassing. Again, our client is, they don't really need anything to the west, so they're good if it just dead ends. If it needs to be open, they're good as well. But in general, the existing traffic patterns that they might see going on the site has a lot to do with it's been vacant so long. Semis sometimes park on the site, or people up to whatever they're up to use the site to do whatever they want. And so a lot of that will go away as it becomes actual hotel guests. And I just want to note too, if you zoom out further on the aerial, that Roosevelt Road, I believe, there's actually some decent kinks in it as it goes further up. There's nothing direct about getting into that part of the neighborhood. So it is much better to go eastward.
Thanks, Nima.
Mr. Chair, follow
Yeah, go
up in that intersection. So, question for staff then, the neighborhood's questions or written testimony from one of the neighbors regarding that intersection, Vista and Elder, implied that the primary safety issues that they think are an issue are bike ped and safe crossings there. And obviously at TIS, we've talked about this many times, and ACHD's approach is motor vehicles and isn't taking that into account. So how do we, as a city, resolve that safety concern from that particular written testimony?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think to resolve that, we would have to continue to work with the highway district on this. I think they do have a bike ped plan for this area. And we could have, our pathways manager reach out to them and see if there's anything we can do to further enhance it, and maybe, or move some of these improvements up further on their list of things to do, as a city recommendation. And I could look into that and see if that's something we can do, much like we can move things up on the CIP plan by making recommendations. I'm not sure if that, I'm assuming there's something similar to that regarding bike ped type of infrastructure.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that'd be interesting if we went down that road, but I'm guessing this applicant doesn't seem that concerned about the access issue. So I understand where they're coming from as well.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Commissioner Torres, please.
I have a question for staff as well.
Yeah.
In the commentary from ACHD and the late correspondence, they talked about the width of the extension of Elder Street to St. Andrews. Can you talk about the city's perspective on what they recommended versus what the applicant's recommending? And I guess the reasoning behind it?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think what they're talking about is they wanted Elder Street widened out to like 36 foot back which is a local commercial street. Being that this is a commercial development, and that's probably their standard for it. The initial project probably looked at it a 33 back a curb, which is our standard local street. And that would probably want to get down to that as it connects into Andrew Drive, being a local street. But they were doing it because it's a local, it's their standard for commercial local streets.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore, please.
So for this connection, there already is a connection through the northernmost St. Andrews Drive to Roosevelt. If you go north on Owyhee Street, so if you're in this development facing north and you turn right, you can turn left onto Owyhee Street, you'll cross St. Andrews and you can connect to Roosevelt that way. So this isn't negating a connection to Roosevelt. It's just kind of a little bit more direct, but regardless, that's not a terribly roundabout connection itself. So you're not, in my mind, and that's the way I see it. So in my mind, it would just be a secondary access. Is that about correct? Am I seeing that about?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think if you look at the street master plan, I believe you're right. If you go down Owyhee, there is a collector roadway that leads back along Carolina and provides that connection as a collector. between Roosevelt and Oahe. This would be kind of a secondary connection point.
Great, thank you.
Any other takers on questions? I got a couple real quick. David, site plan, sorry, Mel, I know you're excited. Site plan, our packet, page 21, they're showing a parking lot in that third parcel. Is that intended for like possible future, or because as it was presented this evening, it's meant to be landscape now, is that right?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the original site design or site packet had that third parcel as an offsite parking for the North Hotel, because at the time that actually had 4 stories on it, so they need the additional parking to make it work.
Okay.
But when they removed the story off of it, they didn't need it anymore. So they're just keeping it as landscaped open space. It's undeveloped at this point.
Okay, all right. So our package is not necessarily accurate for the current plan then for that parcel. Okay.
Correct.
Okay, I'm glad that was a great segue too, David, to my next question. I'm just curious, from the DA, we're getting quite a bit more building height here. Was there discussion on the southernmost hotel and its height? Because it's the one with the 4 stories, correct?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct. The Southern Hotel is the one with the 4 stories.
Okay. Was there discussion about limiting the height of that hotel to only 3 stories?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I did talk to the applicant and negotiated. It was actually a little bit higher. I got them to lower the parapet wall and reduce the tower a bit on it, but they still needed it to be a 4-story hotel for this thing to work for them.
Okay, got you. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore, please.
with that reduced parapet height, this is going through DR to make sure that the mechanical is being screened and all that good stuff.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct. This will have to go through design review, and they'll have to comply with the modern code when they do so.
Thank you.
Okay, is that going to do it for questions? All right, very good. We'll go ahead. Thank you, everybody. Go ahead and open up public testimony. Is there anyone here in person that would like to testify on this item? The podium is free, and this is the time. Okay, no takers. Very good. I believe it's someone from the development team, maybe it's online. So I'll just check in real quick. If you're online and would like to testify, please raise your hand. Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and close public testimony. Move right along into rebuttal. Nicolette, you can certainly yield this time if you'd like, or if you want to do a quick rebuttal, that'd be fine.
Chair, commissioners, I'll say super quickly, we appreciate working with staff and the neighbors to come to this design. We think that this is a great site for infill, and in order to expand the bedroom capacity of our airport, it's important that we build those hotel rooms as close to the airport as possible. So with that, we'll stand for any more questions or call it a day.
I think we can call it good. Thank you, Nicolette.
you.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and bring these items back before the commission to render a decision. Just a reminder to my fellow commissioners that we are recommending on the sub and on the DA modification. So on CAR 2323 and SUB 23-58, we are recommending to council. And then we are the go, no go on the CUP.
I'm happy to go if you commissioners would like me to, but
I mean, you're getting
I
thumbs
always
up,
like
Nope.
to defer, I'm trying to,
You're such a gentleman.
well, I'm trying to be more of a like elder statesman.
Love it.
It's not working.
Lead the way.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of CAR 23-23 and SUB 23-58. And I move that we approve CUP 23-80, all with the terms and conditions of the staff report.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Mooney.
condition number 18 that staff represented previously, we need to account for that in
I
the
believe it was a
motion.
strike.
What is it?
It was striking
Condition
condition.
number 18 on the sub.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, just to remove the reference to CUP 23-00080.
Gotcha. The
condition
previous
18.
CUP application.
Mr. Chairman, I modify my motion to amend our recommendation on SUB 23-58 to move the offending CUP language from condition 18.
Very good. Got a motion to recommend approval and approve.
Second.
Thank you,
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Mooney. Please, Milt.
The, just a couple central issues that I was trying to be attentive to would, and I think actually the most important one is the connection of Elder Street and St. Andrews. I support that. I think connecting streets and spreading traffic out in more of a grid-like pattern is always good. It's really, unless there's like a huge specific issue, which there is not. I also think, I know this area pretty well. My wife's family has lived there since 1960. I don't think there's a lot of traffic coming out of that Elder Street, East Elder Street commercial area and moving all the way over to Roosevelt and then going down Roosevelt. That's just a long, hard way. It's much faster to go straight down Oahe and hit Overland or and then on down into Kootenai, and it's just faster. So I'm not that worried about cut through traffic. And I think connectivity is good. The other issue is just the height of these buildings relative to these residential homes. I was persuaded that we've got some very big setbacks here and lots of landscaping. And frankly, no one's raised it as a major issue, just the mass and height of the building. So I'm like, okay. And then when I found out it was flat ground and, you know, it's not like perched over them, I'm like, okay, good to go. So there you go.
All right, great. Thank you, Milt. John?
Mr. Chair, nothing to add other than thanks to the applicant for the detailed explanations on responding to all the things we have to use in the decision criteria. That was helpful.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, I'm going to go to the end first. Commissioner Torres, please.
I agree with Commissioner Gillespie. I also think at some point, as this region continues to grow, the residents of this neighborhood may want that connection through onto Elder Street, so they have more options to get out of their neighborhood. It's not just about people going through their neighborhood; it's about their access to get out of it to other places in the community as well. So, I will be supporting the motion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
I think on the connection piece, because this is not this is not going to open up the only connection there. There's already a connection that could be made if you really wanted to. I'm comfortable adding this connection because it is secondary. It's not going to feed everything. And based on the traffic impact study, there's not a lot of anticipated traffic going that direction from this particular site. On the height exemption piece, I think that, you know, it's just that very corner of that one building that's the height exemption that abuts two properties just at that corner. But yeah, and not only that, but it also gets to act as kind of a buffer to ID4. So I think that there's a little bit of give and take right there, and that makes me comfortable with that height exception at that location.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Any other takers? Commissioner Seha?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to add. I will be supporting the motion.
Very good. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Yeah, thank you to the applicant team. Thank you to the Neighborhood Association. Thank you to staff for the presentations. Yeah, for me, I mean, I agree with all the comments about the roadways. I think that distributing the traffic through another connection will actually be beneficial for the neighborhood. It's a little bit counterintuitive sometimes how we think about traffic. And honestly, Milt, you nailed it for me too. The building masses and height were one of the biggest red flags for me on this application. However, as Milt said, you know, we don't have an awful lot stated against either of those items, right? Neighborhood Association seems to be in support of them, and there's not a lot of negative commentary about the size or the heights of those buildings. So I see no reason to stand in the way. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, we have recommendations to approve the CAR and the sub, and then motion to approve the CUP with the amendment to condition number 18. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaefer,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
Mooney,
Yes.
Seha,
Yes.
Torres,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. That concludes our business. We are adjourned.